hosting us here today at this event. Thank you, Jane, for your incredibly eloquent testimony and the amazing work that you did. And I also want to thank CitizensUK for the amazing work they have done over the last 10 years. First as Telco, then as London Citizens, and now as CitizensUK. And it is an extraordinary movement that has been built by a number of people, and I think we should pay tribute to them for the amazing work that they have done. My involvement with London Citizens started about 4 or 5 years ago when I was the Minister for the voluntary sector, and I came to an extraordinary meeting in Hammersmith, and I saw the amazing mobilisation that London Citizens had engineered and the work they were doing as a community organisation. A few months ago, before the general election, I met a cleaner from one of the Whitehall departments who talked to me about how she was struggling to make ends meet. She wasn't being paid the living wage. That was one of the things that motivated us to put in our manifesto a commitment to paying a living wage in Whitehall as a start towards the kind of living wage that we need across the country. But for me, and this is what I want to talk about today, the issue of the living wage speaks to three things. It speaks to the kind of society we believe in, the kind of Labour Party that I want to see, and what we ourselves can do to make change happen in our country. And I just want to talk about each of those briefly. First of all, the kind of society we believe in. I think the people in this room are united by a belief that injustices need to be tackled, in a belief in the dignity of work, in a belief in tackling inequality. And the offence that is caused to us, I think, when we see chief executives being paid millions and cleaners on poverty pay, or indeed in Whitehall departments, people being paid six-figure salaries and security guards or others not being paid the living wage, I think it goes deep into our soul about the injustice of our society. And Jane put it very well. We're one of the richest countries in the world, and we see that happening and we think it's just wrong. It's just wrong and it's unfair and it needs to change and it needs to be stopped. And that's why I think the Living Wage campaign is so important, because it speaks to the values, not just of people in this room, but people all around the country who share that sense of fairness and that belief in fairness and what we want to see in our society. But it speaks to something else as well, which is the difference between the legal obligations that we place on companies or people and the kind of society we believe in. The minimum wage sets the legal minimum that people should be paid. But the truth is, all of us believe in people going beyond the legal minimum. We believe that the companies should do it in relation to the environment, how they help their local community, how they train their workers. And the other thing I think that we believe, because otherwise we wouldn't be here, is that we don't just feel this. There are millions of other people around this country who feel it as well. But the truth is that people may feel it, but unless there are mobilised citizens putting it on the agenda, they won't necessarily act on it. And the truth is that a low-paid worker, either at the LSE or in the City of London, on their own, is not going to be able to secure the living wage for them. And that's why this movement is so important, because it's actually about power. It's actually about power in our society. Who has power in our society, and how we redistribute power in our society. And so what has London Citizens achieved when it has got the living wage paid? It has empowered the powerless and made it possible for them to get decency in the workplace. And that's why it's so important. So actually I think what we're talking about in this campaign is power, and how we give power to those who don't have it, how we help mobilise them to lead the campaign to change their own lives for the better. So I think it speaks to the kind of society we are and where power lies. Now some people will say, at this time when there isn't money around and there's a large budget deficit and companies are recovering from the recession, you shouldn't be talking about the living wage. That's not an issue for now, they'll say it's an issue for later. My response to that is twofold. First of all, to say there are companies making big profits who can pay the living wage, and if they can pay it, they should. And the truth is that what we all know is that the most successful progressive campaigns in our history don't happen in days, in weeks, in months, they take years. And that's one of the things that London Citizens has taught me, which is about the time that you need to take to build this campaign. So I think in a way we should go into this very clear that we will have early successes, but it will take a long time to make the kind of change that we need. And in a way, it's much better to be open and honest about that up front. But that's why it's so important that we put it on the agenda now and start to make it an issue now. And that takes me to my second point, which is about the Labour Party and the kind of Labour Party I believe in. For me, Labour Party members delivering leaflets is incredibly important. It's what stopped the Conservative Party getting a majority at the last general election. But there must be more to being a Labour Party member than delivering a leaflet. Because if Labour Party members could make the extraordinary effort they did at the last general election and prevent the Conservative Party getting a majority, think what they can do next. Think what they can do as one of the biggest community organising forces in Britain. And that is the kind of Labour Party I believe in. There are some people who say, look, you can't achieve anything in opposition. What you need to do in opposition is just wait to get back into power. I don't believe that. Part of being in opposition is about opposing, but part of it is about creating as well. It's about creating a movement that sustains you in opposition and in government. It's about creating the circumstances in which you can win power back. And it's about creating the kind of mandate you want to win power for. And I think we can do all those things as a Labour Party. And my message to our party is this: we won't win back power unless we become a broad popular movement rooted in people's lives and campaigning on things like the living wage. And what we need to get back to power is not managerialism, but mobilisation. That is the thing that will get us rooted in communities and make a difference to people's lives. And we saw it at the election with extraordinary results. Take the UMP, Stella Creasy, in Walthamstow, that some of you will know. She spent her time partly identifying voters who might vote Labour, but also as the best community organiser in Walthamstow. That is the kind of party that I think we can become. So that's the second thing, about the kind of Labour Party this speaks to. The third thing is about what we should do next, what we should do ourselves. Matthew from Citizens UK always says at the end of every meeting, I think someone will say at the end of this one, what are you going to do now? What are you going to do next? It's not good enough just to come to a meeting. So what am I going to do? In my leadership campaign, I am going to ensure that at every stop, and I'm going to be in Wales later on today, at every stop the living wage is central to my campaign. Because I don't think that this leadership campaign should just be about the election of one person. It's got to be about much, much more than that. It's got to be about showing Labour is back, as the People's Party, back organising in people's communities to make a difference to people's lives. So that's one of the things I'm going to do. Also, we're going to be sending out information today from which we've worked with Citizens UK about what Labour Party members can do in their own communities, working with Labour leaders. And we've got some great Labour leaders here today who will be talking in a moment about what they're doing in their own local councils. Working in the community to identify the mobilising forces. That's what Citizens UK teaches us, that can make a difference on the ground. And putting pressure on councils and local businesses to start putting the living wage on their agenda. And I'm going to be working with Labour Party members, I hope, and people not inside the Labour Party to make that a reality. Let me end with this thought. The American politician Robert Kennedy gave a speech in 1966, which is my favourite political speech, and he said, each time someone stands up against an injustice, it sends forth a tiny ripple of hope. And those ripples of hope become a current that can sweep down the mightiest walls of oppression. That is what London citizens have been doing over the last decade or more. That's what Citizens UK wants to do across this country. And that is the sort of Labour Party I believe in. Thank you very much.